I personally would vote the Ethereum merge to be the biggest, most important thing that happened in Web3 in 2022 that nobody's talking about anymore. And that I think is going to have one of the biggest impacts of Web3, well, at least related to crypto and NFTs moving forward.
Hello, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2023 and to a special 3-part episode of From the Blockchain, where the ladies behind the podcast take a look back and review some of the highlights of Web3 in 2022. This is Ashley, also known as Board Becky, and over the next 40 minutes or so, you'll hear myself chatting with NFT Ignition and Cara about some of the past year's biggest stories and our personal takes. It was a busy and crazy year with a lot of ups and downs, and it's possible we missed a few things. Make sure to find us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at @fame_ladies. Tag us in your stories or posts about the episode and let us know your thoughts or any big stories or major innovations you think we should have mentioned. I also want to tell you that it's been such a pleasure running this podcast for over a year now, and the From the Blockchain and Fame Lady Squad team want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the show and leave a review. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Now, let's get to part 3, our final part of our 2022 year in review.
Celsius. And I can't believe we're still just in June.
I know. We're almost done with it, though. Celsius was a place where a lot of people were staking for low 4 to 10% APY on more stable assets. Like a lot of times when people do staking, it'll be super high APY, super high risk DeFi stuff. This is kind of the other side of that, where people are taking ETH, they're taking stable coins, and they're staking it for a promised amount of percentage, right? So this was one platform where people were doing that, and they had some liquidity issues, and they ended up freezing withdrawals, and then filing bankruptcy.
We started hearing a lot of the not your keys, not your crypto. There was a lot of...
I was wondering, can we talk a little bit about not your keys, not your crypto? We referenced this in the last episode that I listened to with Crystal Groves. And I'm not sure we really explained what that means. And it's a term that's used a lot. I think this is a great moment for pause and learning. Not your keys, not your crypto. Would one of you like to take that?
So keys would refer to your private keys, which is also known as, or can also refer to a seed phrase, which is something that you were given when you set up your own wallet and take custody of your own crypto. So basically when people are saying not your keys, not your crypto, what they mean is take crypto off of the exchanges, hold it yourself in a ledger or a wallet safely, because when things happen to exchanges, you can lose access to those coins. One example from the past would be Mt. Gox, where people lost millions and millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin because the entire platform went down. Now we're seeing examples of that this year, starting with Celsius, and then there's a few more that we'll talk about. But you can't always trust that exchange is going to stay liquid. For example, even a bank would have problems if everyone in town were to go and try and withdraw all of their money. They would run out of money and not have any money to give you. And this is the same thing that happens with exchanges. If people for some reason think that they want to, there's going to be a problem with exchange. For example, there's been rumors lately that Binance is next, which we have no reason to think that that's the case. But if enough people say it, enough people panic, and everybody takes their money out of Binance, Binance becomes illiquid. They have to halt withdrawals, which makes people panic even more. And then with other platforms we've seen, they then have to file for bankruptcy because they just don't have the funds to come back out of that hole.
I'm really curious where this all lands in terms of like the centralized exchanges and how they're regulated. Obviously, that's a big thing that's going on right now, with FTX and many others that, went belly up over the last year. But just anywhere where, it's not a decentralized ecosystem, there's this risk. However, I think this is just my opinion, for mass adoption, like there needs to be safe places for people to engage, I feel. and folks who don't want to have to learn all the things, or you know, securing your keys needs to get a little easier. It shouldn't be like if you want your mom or dad to do it, you know, the learning curve shouldn't be so difficult. But I think that people are happy to pay a little money to feel like whatever activity they're doing is like safe. So, anyways, that's just an aside. But I think that these are the types of things and the you know, instances through the year that have really prompted a lot of these conversations. And again, I think there's going to be folks, whomever they are, I don't know who they are, but they're going to come in and solve some of these problems. We'll see. And I think regulation, love it or hate it, is probably going to be one of the catalysts to like solutions. So we shall see. But yeah, so that's a good one to highlight. Let's go. Oh my goodness. Okay, so July, the market is obviously seeing a shift. Still seeing some like big plays though. CryptoPunk 2156 bought for 2,691 ETH. That's $3.3 million, I guess, at that time. It'd be nice to be able to make those kind of leaps of faith. Okay. Another company files bankruptcy. Voyager was an exchange, Danielle. Another exchange. So we know you said earlier on as we were prepping for today that 5 exchanges went bankrupt, like basically month after month this year, pretty much. Like that, who it was and why and how it happened.
Month, and then we had 2 in November. So it was a similar pattern for all of them where they become illiquid. They have to freeze withdrawals, and then they file for bankruptcy days or weeks after that happens.
I mean, the summer was like kind of boring, right? Like, there was a lot going on, but it was like there wasn't a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I mean, Fame Lady Squad announced we were getting ready to announce our partnership with Daz 3D. So there's that. That was very exciting. And I'm just trying to think. In the meantime, as all of this is happening, I just want to highlight a ton of NFT and Web3 conferences happening through the year, like a ton. I'm sure every month there was something going on. Every month you could have seen, you know, XYZ person is at ABC conference on Twitter, like, and expanding throughout the year, like throughout the globe, less and less North American centric, which I think is really interesting. Do you see anything in here that we want to spend time on, July or August? Because all this stuff otherwise to me is kind of like we've either kind of talked about it or
it was kind of boring.
Like,
Yeah, it was kind of boring. I agree.
Yeah, I think we were all waiting for September. Like, I know I was waiting for September. My baby was coming. Maybe that's why I also spaced out and had no idea what was going on. But September, we were anticipating the planned Ethereum merge from proof of work to proof of stake. And that was a significant shift. It's one that had been planned for since the beginning of Ethereum. But it was something that I think we had thought might happen earlier. But finally, we were kind of given this mid-September date. And so we were all anxiously kind of awaiting to see it. If it A, happened, B, was successful, C, had no like major hiccups, and D, what would it do for the market? And for those of you who don't know what the Ethereum merge was, I don't think we need to like go in and dive super deep. We did do an episode 40 in September with Alan Henn from Vayner, which I think explains a lot about like why it happened. But that happened, and it did have I think an impact on values for a short bit, and then it didn't. It was very like anticlimactic in my opinion.
It was.
I just see nodding.
I thought for sure, you know, like mix up the wrong token with the right token. And it was the first time that Ethereum had done a merge as opposed to a hard fork as well, right? So there was a lot of learning about, on my end, what the heck was the difference between the fork and the merge and the proof of work versus proof of stake. And then also like buying things with my eyes closed. I remember I like waited to buy something, and then finally when I'm like, I'm going to try it, I just did that. And then everything was okay.
Yeah. I think, again, just speaking to that fear of like the whole infrastructure is changing, is that like, is something bad going to happen? I personally would vote the Ethereum merge to be the biggest, most important thing that happened in Web3 in 2022 that nobody's talking about anymore. And that I think is going to have one of the biggest impacts of Web3, well, at least related to crypto and NFTs moving forward. The short little snippet that I'll provide, again, go back and listen to the episode, is that it reduced carbon emissions and from related to trading and transactions by 99.5%. So the environmental impact has been incredibly, like, massively, substantially reduced, which was one of the key objections to using Ethereum and trading NFTs in the first place. There's probably still a lot of people who would go out there and hear about NFTs and say it's bad for the environment, which is, we all care about the environment first and foremost. I want to say that, like, we think it matters. We also think it matters that the technology evolves and people, good people who care, are like involved to make things better. But this is huge. And once, in my opinion, this bear market is like, has seen its day and we're moving on to new world, that narrative is going to change. And there's going to be a lot of folks who were nervous to adopt this technology, and a lot of folks, even if it was simply for optics as a business or company, that did not want to be associated with the negative environmental impacts that were, was in the dialogue. To me, that's going to afford a lot of these people and companies to get into this space and no longer have to worry about dealing with that really negative connotation. So that's my one thing. Once we hit the bull market again, this merge is going to have been the biggest thing that came to any of us, and that nobody's talking about right now.
I agree with you. I think the merge was a big thing. I think the environment, mainly for the environmental thing, I feel like Vitalik talks about that too, that like the chances that we take on proof of stake over proof of work is mostly worth it, so that we can tell people that this chain that everybody's using is far more environmentally friendly. But I think one of the bigger plays this year was Poly doing the Disney Accelerator program. I think Polygon is going to, come 2023, it's going to do things. Thank God it's tied to Ethereum, which has made this major change. But Matic is, I always look over at Matic and I'm like, maybe I should just scoop some up just to have it in the back corner, because the integration that we're going to see, that we have been seeing, is going to be wild.
And Polygon, and correct me, is a layer 2 for Ethereum, correct? Please.
Sure,
yes. Look at the things I'm learning for being involved, you guys.
Yes, it is. And it's also more affordable than
Yay.
Like way more affordable than Ethereum.
And it's basically like gas free, right? So like is that correct? I'm looking at Danielle for a response.
It depends on the transaction. There are some gas fees that you pay in Matic, but it's more like a couple cents, maybe a couple dollars at the max, versus
nominal
Ethereum, where you can have 3 ETH gas fees in a major drop.
And layer 2 chains, I don't know if that's the right language, but that's the other thing that I feel like I'm hearing is they're coming. They've been built out over the last year. They've been used. But I think that that's something that we're going to be watching a lot as we move ahead, are these layer 2s. You mentioned the Disney thing. I actually didn't know about that, Cara. That sounds super, super cool. Starbucks also used Polygon for a membership rewards program, which I think that whole idea of rewarding your consumer, your customer, your members, whatever, is going to be a really great use case for NFTs, a wonderful utility. I think there's been some info in the news lately about how that's rolling out for Starbucks. But to see a company like Starbucks take that on and be the case study, I think is very cool. And if they're successful, I think there will be more companies jumping on board. And this is like akin to, I mean, I haven't really looked into it. I think they're looking at some gamifying of all of this stuff and making it playful and integrating with their non-tokenized consumers as well. So they aren't necessarily two completely separate programs. But like, if you're a frequent flyer or like an avid shopper or consumer somewhere, you get like your, old school. You go in, you got your stamp card, get your stamp, you lose the stamp card, damn it, I was like one stamp away from that free sub or whatever. Like this is kind of the next iteration of like what you can do, and it's traceable. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, you can't be fraudulently claiming things. Like there's a lot of opportunity here for companies, which I think is really, really cool. Have you guys seen any of this stuff?
I was just peeking at the website, and what I like, it's called the Odyssey experience. But what I like about this is
Mm-hmm.
there's been so many NFT projects. Like we've seen a couple of brands enter the space, and you don't always know why they've made that connection, or you see celebrities enter the space and they're promoting like pandas in purple, and you're like, what do pandas or purple have to do with who you are, what the company is? But the Odyssey experience, from what I'm seeing, is they part of the activities or the things that you're doing is that you're going to a coffee farm in Costa Rica. And so I love and then it's also,
Mm-hmm.
as you were saying, it's the points that we already know. Like Reddit did this really well, where you kind of do the thing that you would have always done as your brand, but you integrate NFTs
Mm-hmm.
to create a different experience
Mm-hmm.
that's still a brand experience. I'm really excited for the Starbucks point system thing that they've got going on. Have either of you signed up for it? I didn't sign up
Mm-hmm.
for
I
it. I
think
wanted to.
no, that's like, as we're talking about, is exactly what I'm thinking. Is I know it was like a beta, so I don't think it was I don't think anyone could have just jumped into this. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I think it was somehow limited, so they could see like how it worked and
There
if
is,
it
I
worked.
will
But I
say,
think so far,
there is a wait list that you can try. I don't know if they're reviewing it. They're only asking for your email, but you can totally
mm-hmm,
Google Starbucks NFT, and there's a wait list
mm-hmm,
opportunity at the bottom of the page.
mm-hmm. Speaking of email, sorry, we're gonna start getting email subscribers to our podcast. So check in the show notes for a link to subscribe. We have some fun things coming in 2023 ourselves, and you're going to want to be on that email list. Of course, you'll also get notified when our shows drop. But look at me, just organically slipping that shill in there. uh, so before we leave September was interesting. Ethereum merge, Starbucks uses Polygon. This is a big one. I don't think we've seen what this is all really going to mean yet, but Facebook, Meta, introduces support for posting NFTs on Instagram and Facebook. And we definitely started seeing, I think prior to this, certain NFT projects having the beta access to showcase certain things. But around September is around the time where Instagram users could connect their wallet and show the NFTs they have, and they're verified, and they show what collection they belong to, which is really neat. And I mean, Twitter's been kind of doing this for a little while now, but I think that being a more visual platforms, there's a lot of cool things that can be done. I don't know much about what they're thinking and planning. Obviously, Meta is thinking a lot about the metaverse, which is very clear in the name change. So, like, if you thought Web3 was the end of Web2, Web2 wants to play. So, and I think we think that generally it's great because it puts things in front of the eyeballs of everybody. Danielle, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great as long as um, they're educating people and not just shoving them in blindly into using this new technology. I think Facebook and Instagram can onboard way more people than any single project could, but what do they know when they get here after going through that? Do they just know that it's a thing they want to know more about, or are they actually coming in educated on what all they can do and the technology kind of behind what they're using?
I totally agree. So I've already connected my wallet to my Instagram, and then I wanted to put up a particular NFT, and then I disconnected it, and it still kept the NFT, which I loved. But then when I reconnected it again, I used a different wallet, and I put up a different NFT. And then this time I didn't disconnect, and I went back to look at my wallet, and I found somebody described it once as NFT dust, but all of the stuff in your hidden folder. And I was like, oh, of course, because there's nothing to stop that. But now you're on a new platform. So there's there's going to be a lot of educating for those people unless Instagram decides to figure out a way to centralize that experience and take care of those things. I'm also interested in some of because they've as we've been following what they're doing there, and they just kept trying to figure out how they fit with Web3. Like they've just kept doing all of these changes to Reels, copying a little bit what TikTok does. And so it feels like they're finally starting to settle into how they want to approach Web3, which is through this wallet stuff. I'm interested to see if you will have like an Instagram wallet. And now that they've started to add subscriptions for certain accounts, I'm interested to see if those subscriptions can be crypto based. And also the most recent thing that they've added is like inside of your message box, there's little circles of people's PFPs that have questions. And I can't help but wonder, like, they've also made changes to WhatsApp. Is there going to be integration with that and what that does on the platform? But all of this stuff, I feel like, including the WhatsApp change, they're considering things like Discord. So it'll be really cool to see how all of that either gets integrated or how the best parts of those things that we've seen become part of those apps.
Yeah. The education part's so important. And there's like so many scams in these other platforms too that I think, having not been traditionally like an epicenter for crypto and NFTs, like that there needs to be some special care that's taken to make sure people are safe. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to see the movement away from maxis and like the people who don't care. They don't romanticize like the anonymity, for example. To your point earlier, Cara, about people on TikTok. People on TikTok, 99%, unless they're putting some sort of filter. By the way, they still have to sign up for the app, so there's lack of anonymity in some case there. But like people are showing their faces, they're participating in one way or another. Like it's just a different culture that's emerging that's going to showcase interest in digital collectibles and the things that can come with them. So that'll be something to watch for sure. I mean, the last quarter feels like there's just been so much that's gone on, like just generally, like from summer that felt like there was nothing. The last quarter just feels super heavy. The Reddit NFT drop in October, like that introduced NFTs or digital collectibles. So what's the number at? Do we know?
They did another drop again.
Yeah,
they just did another one, I think. I don't know what the number is.
The short version is people are creating their avatars on Reddit, a platform that I have been on like one time, which is terrible. To millions and millions of Reddit users changed their PFP, their avatar, to something that's an NFT. So basically, Reddit introduced this tech to millions of people in like a very, very short period of time, more than pretty much anything else did, more than any other platform, as far as I know. That's the narrative I'm hearing. It's a big deal.
It in a weird way,
people have wallets now.
It makes perfect sense. And it's tied to Alexis Ohanian. I'm never going to say his name right, but he essentially worked, not created Reddit. Jesus, this is, I'm showing my hand, but a major player, owns Cool Cats, married to Serena Williams. And in a way, it makes perfect sense that, someone like that being in the space, it was only a matter of time that there would be something on Reddit. I just think it was so cool that we didn't hear about it until it was done. And I think I've said this earlier in the episode, but it was just so the little avatars, I think they're like little snooze or whatever, they already changed. You can change their outfit. When you sign up, you get a basic one, or you can choose a randomizer and it'll just flip on whatever it wants. So to just turn a couple of those into NFTs, they didn't turn all of them into NFTs. They turned like a certain set of them. And it spoke to that audience, those people who are crisscrossing between Twitter, like NFT Twitter, and on Reddit, and all of a sudden they had an opportunity. I think they also did a couple of artist collabs. So there are artists from the NFT space that were making pieces for Reddit.
Yeah, Alexis Ohanian, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is co-founder of Reddit. He is someone that one of the 3 people I saw when I was at this Brilliant Minds conference in Sweden earlier this year that were talking about Web3. Like people were talking about other important things, but I didn't know as the co-founder of Reddit that his whole talk was going to be about Web3 and NFTs and how it's the future. And that was before this all happened, like by a month maybe. So really neat to kind of connect those dots. It's a pretty big deal. It also explains one of the reasons why Serena Williams is an early NFT adopter, because I think she was rocking her NFTs some point last year, which is really fun. I don't know. We got to fly through some of this stuff. Rarible launches 2.0. Is that your realm, Danielle? I feel like you're the one that's you knew probably 1.0 better than either of us.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that that much has changed, but they have added more blockchain availability.
And
So,
what is Rarible for those?
Yeah, so Rarible was one of the first marketplaces that launched. For a long time, it was OpenSea and Rarible were the 2 that you could use. And at first, Rarible was the only place you could go to mint your own work before OpenSea had added that capability later. So it was it was really hyped for a long time. People would get rarity drops every Tuesday that was based on either selling or buying activity. And so the more you bought or sold, you got like an airdrop every week based on that, which might still be happening. It's just probably not worth much anymore for people to be talking about it. But they have added more blockchains. So you can use Tezos, for example, now on Rarible.
So the takeaway for me is, OpenSea, while they're building, because they are doing, you can see that they're doing things and making improvements. Other marketplaces are still building. This is October, in the heart of the bear market. Still building, still releasing updates. To me, that's promising. So excited about that. I guess Art Blocks 2.0. Are you able to speak a little bit about that one?
I know not much about Art Blocks, to be honest. It's a website that has a million different collections. There's a lot of different collections that have gone through Art Blocks. I'm not really sure what the 2.0 part is.
Same thing though. Still building, releasing upgrades. That's the takeaway. I think some of that stuff here. The other big thing, October, the SEC launched an investigation into Yuga for possible securities violations. This is just basically the ongoing spotlight, let's say, on crypto, NFTs. What does it all mean? There was no regulation really built for it. Yuga Labs, again, folks behind Bored Ape Yacht Club, are the very clear sort of entity to be looking at, right? Like they're the ones that if there's going to be a spotlight on regulation, they're going to be the case study. So seeing that happening. Yeah, I mean, November is where things started getting, if you thought it was crazy and you thought it was like bad, November happens. I'll be gone until November. So here we see FTX pausing withdrawals and then filing for bankruptcy 2 days later. And then all the unfolding, all of the implosion that happens from this. Major downward pressure on the market, obviously. A lot of lack of confidence, a lot of question more about this regulatory stuff. SBF is an acronym that's used, and if you don't know, it's what Sam Bankman Fried.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Am
I saying it right?
Yeah.
Like he's referred to as SBF all the time. So if you don't know, I'm sorry, I'm lame for not even being able to say his full name, but he's the founder of FTX, who's been subject to like all of this news. You've probably even seen it in your normie news, right? Like he's in the Bahamas, he's getting arrested, he's going on some like media circuit tour despite the fact that all of this stuff is happening, and then he finally like legitimately gets arrested and all of this stuff in December. But that I mean, I was really starting to feel somewhat comfortable in November. Like, okay, the market sucks, but we're in neutral. Like, we can build. Like, my Ethereum bags are low, but they seem to be like floating. They'll be okay. And then they weren't. I always think of Ethereum in Canadian dollars, but it went below 1,000 USD, right? Like, yeah. And I think earlier this year we saw Ethereum go like what was its all-time high in USD?
4,000.
In the 4,000s. 45 maybe.
Yeah, $4,878.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it touching over $6,000 Canadian at one point. I was like, "Sweet." And now like so this is the impact of this is how the emotional roller coaster that so many people are going on, thinking like this is the real secure one. I still have, not financial advice, I still have a ton of you know, faith in ETH and some of the others. But it just like everything took a hit. If Luna wasn't enough. I mean,
and right
do
after this, we had BlockFi, right, which is another exchange, froze withdrawals, then filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy a couple weeks later.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to like spend too much time diving into this. I would say most of you probably already know it sucked. I think it had a negative impact on a lot of things, including emotions and mental health. So we hope you're all doing well. I do think there's a light to the end of the tunnel. There already, I think, has been some positive sentiment since the arrest, which was very recent before this recording. But like then the fun stuff that did happen in November, I think we can fast forward to it. You know, ChatGPT is an AI, open AI platform that launched its sort of, I might be using the wrong language, but basically beta, inviting users to play with the platform. And you're basically interacting with AI and giving it prompts. And people are already creating like the craziest, like mind-boggling stuff. It's I would say this AI is far more sophisticated than I thought we were when it came to like consumer forward AI. And I now realize we're probably still at its infancy and it's probably just going to get way crazier. So I mean, to me, this ties so much into Web3, even though it may not necessarily be inherently Web3, but it's really part of this next iteration of where like the internet is going. It's going to change, I think, how we interact with the internet. It's probably Google's like, how do we keep top of mind as like a search engine, because there's just so much that you can go in and do with this type of thing. You can ask it to write essays for you, write basically anything for you. There are some limitations. Sorry to kind of ramble on, but like I was showing my partner who's really like anti-tech, like he worries about the nature of like where the world is going to be with all of this. I'm like, you have to look at it. It's crazy. It has great business applications, etc. And he's in real estate as I was. And I showed him how he can take like the monthly market statistics and create like a whole like personalized summary about the market. And then I told him, you can put this, into I'm like, tell me whose voice you want this summary to sound like. We'll redo it. And he said George Carlin. And so we redid the summary through the voice of like like the tone, the language that someone like George Carlin, the comedian, would use. And it was like so on point and he thought it was hilarious. And then I said, oh, create an Excel spreadsheet or create a spreadsheet of these stats. And it came out, spat out. He's like, holy crap. And then I told it how to like make that spreadsheet even more sophisticated and it gave us an even more iteration. Like, here you go. Here's all your content you need to send your clients for the next month via your email marketing. Like, and you're going to look like a genius, right? He's still a little nervous and I get it. Like, if everyone can look like a genius, and are there, of course, like ways people can use this technology in nefarious ways or whatever? Yes, but I'd still say be a part of it and know about it. I could keep going. I've seen crazy things on TikTok people are doing with this AI.
Yeah.
What
They
have you guys been doing?
put Chat GPT took the bar exam and passed.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They gave it all the questions and selected all the answers that it spat out and it passed. So yeah, it's clearly smarter than the average human.
Yeah. To be fair, ChatGPT didn't really like come out yesterday. It's under the OpenAI, and I know this for a fact because there was a while where I was single, and in my Instagram I wrote that I was dating ChatGPT, but I feel like it wasn't called ChatGPT at the time. So what I'm actually really what I love about it is after like spending all of this time in Web3 where we're all trying to like spit out metaverses and all this kind of tech, to see the tech at the end of this year, even though the market sucks, to see the tech at the end of this year be consumer ready in a way that's going to disrupt schools, disrupt, like instead of just being a bot that you deal with on Instagram, which always kind of floored me that the amount of bots that we deal with, the amount of AI that we deal with daily and we don't consider, to now see it come up in this form and this iteration. And they just released a 3D one. It only does like point cloud, so it's a 3D asset of anything that you want, but it's only dots. It's not necessarily a full-fledged thing, but it allows the person who wants to create something based off of an idea into something very real and tangible in really cool ways. And I think exactly as you had said, Ashley, that it's not so much something to be afraid of, but to recognize that it is a medium and what can we do with that medium and how does it move us forward as people. It makes me think of like when film first came out and there was a movie in a movie house and a train came at the audience and they all freaked out and they were very scared of it. Or when photography came out and everybody thought cameras steal your soul. And now thanks to those things, we have like the internet, we can play with things like Photoshop. So I'm super excited about this new medium and what we'll do with it.
We have seen actually just this week, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Coin Artist, Neon District is her project, I believe. They just launched a AI generator for Unity to create 3D in-game assets.
Wow.
Like imagine just being able to, create the whole metaverse experience around you through AI, the buildings, the people, the characters, the storyline, like all of that. That next step will be movies.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I'm seeing is this like coding or checking coding, like proofreading coding, basically. Like, are there any issues here? I think there's obviously going to be pressure on jobs in different sectors. So it's something to highlight. Like, if this could impact what you do, you should be thinking about it, maybe how you can leverage it, if anything. But there's some fun. I think it's a fun anecdote. I saw a video of someone saying like, I have nothing in my fridge. I'm going to list all the crappy things I have left in my fridge, and I'm going to ask it to make me a recipe. And it did. And the recipe was apparently good. Like, there's fun things as well. But anyhow, and I do think there's still the artist touch. Just kind of back to the other point is like, there's still human touch that can add value to things. But anyways, the other part is like Lenza and others are launching these like quote unquote magic avatars, which are like taking imagery and recreating. And I know there's more concerns with some of the I've played with it. I thought it was really fun, but it's like who owns these rights? can you commercialize them? I don't know. And I think there had already been people being sued. Like there's all these things, but at the core, it's definitely enticing because it's fun. So, but there's questions that come up with anything new of like, A, what are you giving them? What are you getting? Um, all that stuff. But if you're seeing a bunch of Instagram photos or whatever of like AI generated stuff, Lens is one of the ones that people are using. The other thing that we've talked now like been many times about having Alethea on our podcast, and it has not happened yet. Alethea AI. I really want to make sure we get them on in 2023 because I see that with this like next iteration of where AI is going, they have cool stuff. Alethea is a company that basically takes NFT avatars and basically brings them to life and gives them personalities and gets them to do cool things. And Fame Lady Squad happens to be one of the integrated projects that they work with. But I think that's really what we saw with that is probably going to be the very, 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 very beginning of like the possibilities that are going to come later. So I think that's cool. It's something to watch too. So November wasn't all bad. There was some fun stuff. Unless AI takes over the world, then maybe I'm wrong. December. We're almost at the end of December. There's, I'm sure, room for crazy things to still happen. So if you're listening to this and we missed something, it's because we recorded it before that thing happened. Cool. I didn't actually know this. So someone popped this note in, which is really neat. Decentraland added support for land rentals. I was wondering when that was going to happen in the metaverse. I personally don't think the metaverse is where it's going to be. It's like, I don't really know that the adoption is there. However, this idea of renting out land is something we've been talking about. It's pretty cool to be able to like build that on the blockchain where someone has access to a space. Probably, I'm making this up, probably has access to a space for a period of time that's been paid for. Once that period of time is no longer paid for, you probably no longer have access to it. That's probably what it is. I see heads shaking.
We actually know someone who
Uniswap launches, and
we know someone who worked on the land rental.
Yeah, go for it.
The land rental thing happening, and it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of smaller groups, people who had bought specifically Decentraland Metaverse. They were full on investors, most of them. They weren't actually people who would use the metaverse. So there were a lot of groups that came out of that who were trying to figure out ways to make a deal to possibly collect more land. And so the beautiful thing about land rentals is that the actual game players now have an opportunity to, build out something on that land for a particular period of time, put particular like wraps around that land if they want to have an event, and not necessarily have to own the land, which is still tied to like the market, right? And also Decentraland land in particular is really expensive. And in terms of metaverses, Decentraland's built a bit more like our world. Like I believe it's the Barbados has their embassy there. There's banks there, Sotheby's there. And so the kind of metaverse that Decentraland is in particular, I think land rentals will be really helpful depending on who you want to see in that space. So it's great. It's going to be great.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it does help hopefully our audience think about what opportunities there might be. As we've experienced, like we like the kind of concept of a lot of these spaces. It's more just like, are the people there? Is the adoption there? Is the tech? Is the interface where we want it to be? But while they're, it's still going through growing pains, I think there's opportunities. And you think about this in the real world when it comes to real estate. You don't want to go to a place where there was a bunch of vacant lots, like, and then there's like one random wonderful place. Like, you want to go to a place that's vibrant, that's thriving. There's a lot to offer. There's a like variety of things to do. And so if prospective tenants can take some of these spaces and maybe at decent values right now, because people that own the land want to monetize it, right? Like, that could be an interesting time. And I don't know how these like agreements are going to be made, but I could see it reflecting the real world and that there might be opportunities to like, I'm going to sign or pay for a commitment for 2 years or whatever, but I get the first right of refusal to like re-sign at this rate for another 3 or something, because maybe at that point the adoption will know where it's at. Are people actually here, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things for people to be thinking about if they're wanting to dip their toes, into these digital worlds. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Cara. And I know we want to spend more time in the metaverse. We do.
Yeah.
I think so. Uniswap launches NFT marketplace aggregator. So until now, Uniswap was really mainly and I'm going to ask Danielle probably to speak to this. I've always thought of Uniswap mainly as where you go and swap your crypto in more of a decentralized way rather than it being a centralized exchange. It's a company that we had mentioned already that had acquired who? We already talked about them.
Gem or
Genie. So they're making moves. And it only made sense for Uniswap to get deeper into NFTs. Is there anything you want to add about what they've done?
No, I will say that it's definitely a trend though that we're seeing, that anywhere that you could buy crypto before, pretty soon you're going to be able to buy NFTs there. Crypto.com is a great example of that. Coinbase built its own marketplace. There's anyone who's selling Ethereum is probably seeing the value in adding some sort of capability for them to be able to buy NFTs as well. Why not make that couple percent instead of OpenSea?
Yeah, good points. We wanted to talk about some of our thoughts going into 2023. We've spent way too much time talking about 2022, so that's not going to happen today.
Looking at
the time, I have a feeling we might break this down into 3 episodes. I'm hoping we'll see this launched before the end of the year. Maybe we do special episode where one's launched every day for a couple days for the end of the year. If you like this more casual format, because this is obviously a little bit more us, off the cuff and just chatting with each other, do let us know in the comments if the comments section is available in your format that you're listening to this or watching this in. But yeah, I think we should do something about what we're thinking about as we move into 2023. That'll be another episode. Stay tuned, subscribe and review. Join us on TikTok, join us on Instagram. Yes, join us on Twitter too. Everyone, this has been a crazy year, 2022. Despite the ups and downs, happy to be here, excited, still bullish, still super optimistic and proud to say that, we were here this early. And if you're listening to this before the end of 2023, I'd say that you're still early too. So, everyone continue to follow us and tune in and listen to us as we tell stories from the blockchain. Thank you for tuning in to part 3 of our special 3-part episode, 2022, A Year in Review. Don't forget to subscribe, Happy New Year, and stay tuned for more stories from the blockchain.